If you don't have a proper mindset and approach of limiting your content and avoiding any distractions and to ensure the consistency, you are going to fall into the valley of despair and confusion. 99% of the aspirants who fail to clear the UPSC get stuck into this valley for their entire journey. For every test, if you get yourself a mentor, he is finding your faults and providing you the course correction. That is the best way or the most effective way by which you can reach from the level of the beginner to the topper within 1 year. That is why the mindset, the approach, and the consistency in your preparation is absolutely essential. Today's session is basically about a proper roadmap for your 2026 attempt, but here we'll be approaching with some different aspect. Okay, rather than academics, it's the soft skills like the mindset, your approach, and the consistency, which are also the essential for your overall UPSC journey that we'll be talking about. Okay. Good evening, all of you. Myself, Shubham, and I am a lead of Smash Mains program of Civilsdaily IS. Okay. So without wasting any of the time of yours, we'll directly start. Okay. First of all, like I explained in the pre-webinar also, there is a one very famous quote of Charles Darwin. That is, the ignorance more frequently begets the confidence than does the knowledge. So as per Charles Darwin, ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge. What does this mean? This means that the wisdom comes with humility, whereas the ignorance comes with overconfidence or overestimation of your own competence. And this is very much applicable in your overall UPSC preparation also, right? Considering the depth of the knowledge that is required to clear this exam. Okay? The ignorance is going to be your biggest enemy to crack the exam. Okay? So this is also applicable in the famous Dunning-Kruger effect from psychology, where, see, this is the Dunning-Kruger effect which majority of the beginners face, right? How they face it? First, when you start your preparation, okay, at that time, if you are misguided, for example, if you don't have the idea with respect to the syllabus, with respect to the resources, and with respect to the approach that is needed, in that case, at the beginning of your preparation, that is when you are just on the NCRTs, at that time, your confidence level is very high, right? Because NCRTs are the basic source, and at that time, you are able to understand those concepts and you feel that, okay, I have got it covered and I will easily clear the UPSC. You dream of becoming the IAS and all, right? But you don't know the relevance of that particular content from exam perspective, right? That means you lack the exam oriented approach. Okay? And once after some time, when you shift from the NCRT to the standard books, right, then you realize the actual demand of the UPSC, right? And your confidence goes down because of the overwhelming content and multiple distractions. This is where your mindset and approach plays the role. If you don't have a proper mindset and approach of limiting your content and avoiding any distractions and to ensure the consistency, you are going to fall into the valley of despair and confusion. And 99% of the aspirants who fail to clear the UPSC get stuck into this valley for their entire journey for 4 to 5 years. Okay, and this process becomes your 5-year plan. And even after that, this plan fails, where you are not able to clear the UPSC, right? That is why the mindset, the approach, and the consistency in your preparation is absolutely essential. Opposite to it is the ranker's curve, right? Where at the beginning itself, they follow the process-centric preparation rather than simply going through the NCERTs or simply reading the standard books. They follow the proper process. So what is that process that we will discuss into the next slides, right? Once the process-centric preparation is done, that is, once their standard books plus notes are covered with tests. Once that phase ends, right, rather than falling into the valley of despair and confusion, okay, they have the confidence to shift towards the practice, right? Because they already have the notes, they already have given the tests where they have self-evaluated themselves, right? And then they shift to the practice aspect, and at the end, all they had to do is the consolidation and course correction. So consolidation of their notes through the revisions and the course correction through the mentor feedback, right? That is the process that toppers follow. Okay, I have mentored more than 50 toppers, and I have seen their sincerity whenever we have a call or whenever we discuss any of their papers. If I suggest any of the structural changes into their answers, in their next paper, that structural changes are automatically reflected. That is what you call the course correction, right? This is the overall idea with respect to the difference between a misguided beginner and a properly guided rank holder. Okay. Now let's come into the detail of the MAC formula, right? So MAC formula basically is the soft skills. That is your mindset, approach, and consistency. Okay. From academic perspective, okay, or if you are just beginning your preparation, the most important thing out of these three is going to be the approach. Okay. It is absolutely essential that in your preparation, your approach is properly exam oriented. Okay, you must have heard it from somewhere else also. I'm again repeating the same mantra or the same philosophy that you are here to clear the exam. Okay, you are not here, you are here to clear the exam, and you are not here to gain any PhD level of knowledge. Okay. What does that mean? That means that you have to focus only upon the aspects which are relevant to your exam. Secondly, whatever reading you are doing, you should be able to relate it with the particular part of your syllabus. And the second is the process focused preparation. Okay. Now let's delve deeper into both of these aspects. If you see, first, the process focused preparation, which involves 3 steps: phase-wise planning, micromanagement, and input-output balance. Okay. So the first is the phase-wise planning. The phase-wise planning will involve 2 aspects. One, in your mind, you should have the clarity with respect to the broad timeline that you are going to follow in order to complete the syllabus. Okay. And there are different phases to it. Okay. So if you see, the first phase, or which we call the foundation phase, involves the NCERT. For an absolute beginner, when you start your preparation, you have to start with the NCERT. Again, here, which NCERTs to read? Because the simple, considering the recent trend in the exam, you don't need to read all the NCERTs from 6th to 10th for all the subjects. There are only 3 subjects where you need to read the NCERTs. One is the polity, where you will be reading 2 NCERTs of class 11th. One is Indian Constitution at Work, and second, political theory. Why, that will tell later on, because majority of your questions comes from the NCERTs only, the conceptual questions from polity. Yes. Second, for economics, what you need to do is you need to read one class 11th NCERT, that is Indian Economic Development, and one class 12th NCERT, that is macroeconomics. And third is the geography. Yeah. So for geography, your NCERTs are going to be your standard source. So in the first phase itself, you don't need to go through it. But in the first 15 days, you have to start with this. Right. And when I will tell about the process that we are going to follow, there you will get the better idea how to approach those NCERTs. Right. That's your foundation of your preparation. Once that is complete, you need to shift to the second phase, which is the advanced phase, where you target the big 5 subjects. Right? What are your big 5? Suppose you start from tomorrow itself or day after tomorrow, that is 15th of April. By April end, your foundation will be done. Right? And by July end, your big 5 should be completed. So big 5 will involve your polity, which you will be covering through Lakshmikant, economy. There are multiple sources for economy. You can go through the Nitin Singhania, Sanjeev Verma, Mrunal, or you can also go through the Ramesh Singh. You can pick any one of these. Okay. Third is your geography, where PMFIS plus your class 11th and 12th NCERTs are more than sufficient. Then modern history, for which you will be reading only spectrum, right? And last, environment, where you will be going through the PMFIS. Okay, so these are the big 5 subjects that you will be targeting in the next 3 months. Again, the process I will explain. Okay, so this is just the with respect to the schedule. When we will come to the process aspect, there I will discuss the entire process that you have to follow. Right? So this is going to be your big 5. Right, and these you will be covering majorly from prelims perspective. Right. That is, you will be solving your prelims, PYQs, plus the topic-wise, the practice questions that we will be providing. Right. Third, once these big 5 are completed, see, these big 5 are the core of your preparation. 60% of your prelims as well as mains is going to come from these big 5 only. The remaining 40% is related to the current affairs and the other subjects. Okay. Next, once this is done, what you will be doing, you will be shifting to the GS paper-wise mains value addition. Right. Here, you have already covered from the prelims perspective, that is, you have already covered prelims PYQs and the practice MCQs. Right. And through their self-analysis and course correction, you have fairly got the idea with respect to your standing in that particular subject. Right. When you solve the MCQs, that is your self-analysis method. Right. So the purpose of this is to ensure your conceptual clarity. right? And the next phase, which is going to be the most crucial phase into your preparation, is going to be the GS paper-wise men's value addition phase, where rather than going subject-wise, you will be going paper-wise, right? So paper-wise, as in you will be starting with GS2, right? You will be revising quality from Lakshmikant, and then you will be also doing the value addition for the means from the X factor notes, right? And based upon that, once the polity is complete, you will start writing your sectional mains tests, right? After completing GS2 in about 1 month, you will cover your ethics in about 25 days, right? Then you will shift to the GS1, where you will revise your modern history and geography, for which sources are going to be the same, but you will also covering the society as well as the world history, okay, and ancient medieval and art and culture. This is also again in about 1 month, and at the end, you will cover GS3. Okay, so in this way, in about 4 months, again, it will depend upon your speed, but either in 4 or 5 months, maximum, it will take 5 months if you have the proper strategy and proper resources, right? Here, the role of mentor becomes very important. You have to trust your mentor, and whatever suggestions he has given with respect to the resources, you have to stick with only those resources. You don't need to go beyond those resources, right? And here you will be done with your entire GS preparation of the means, right? So even if you start it from August, okay, you should able to finish this by November end, right? And once that ends in the next 2 months, that is December and January, in 15 days each, you revise each paper and attempt one FLT each. So by that time, you will end up by January end, you will end up with 4 FLTs, right? And after January, again, you will shift to the prelims. And after prelims, you will shift to the mains. So here you will attempt around 10 sectional tests. So by January end itself, you will be having the experience of writing at least 4 full-length tests of the mains and around 10 sectional tests of the prelims. And you will be having 2 revisions of your big 5 subjects, right? And in the next 4 months for your prelims, you can have 2 to 3 more rounds of revision of your big 5 and around 40 more tests of the prelims, which is more than sufficient for your prelims. And after the mains, even if you attempt around 12 FLTs of the smash mains, that is going to be sufficient for your mains also, right? So this is the phase-wise planning that you need to have into your mind, right? This is the first thing, right? Once this phase where you have the clarity with respect to these milestones that you need to achieve in your UPSC preparation, right? After that, you can simply break down it into the weekly targets, right? Here again, your mentor will help you in assigning your weekly targets, right? Then next is with respect to the micromanagement. Now, this is the most important aspects where majority of the aspirants miss, right? So what I call micromanagement is, in micromanagement, your approach should not be to target any particular subject, right? Your approach should be at the micro level, where rather than targeting the subject, you are targeting the topic, right? So the process that I will be giving you, okay, that will be applicable at the micro level. That is at the level of the particular topic from your standard book and not the entire subject. Right now, what's that process? It's a 5-step process. And first, the topic approach. Topic approach as in, before starting to read any particular topic, what you have to do, you have to just take the overview of the PYQs, right? And Based upon that, you have to understand the important aspects from that particular topic. Suppose you are starting with Lakshmikant. The first chapter of the Lakshmikant is the historical background, right? So before reading that particular chapter directly from the Lakshmikant, you first go through the PYQs that they have asked. Okay, here to build the approach, again, we provide the week-wise small sessions of about 30 minutes, where whatever, whatever your weekly targets are, we try to provide the important aspects from each chapter. Once you do that, then you read the chapter from your standard book. Because you will be having now the greater clarity with respect to the focus areas, right? Once you cover that standard book, then you go through the PYQs, right? Here you have to attempt the PYQs and the practice MCQs. Attempting the PYQs and practice MCQs is your self-analysis method, right? Once you attempt the PYQs from that particular chapter and practice MCQs, and if you have the accuracy rate of, let's say, above 90%, that means you have covered all the important aspects from that chapter well, and you have got the conceptual clarity, right? If your accuracy rate is below 60%, that means you lack the conceptual clarity in the important aspects from that chapter. And again, based upon your mistakes, you have to revisit those aspects, right? And if you have a dedicated mentor, so these PYQs and the practice MCQs that you have attempted, you can discuss it with your mentors, where the mentor will go for the fault finding. That is, he will identify the areas where you are most weak in. Based upon that, he will either give you a course correction, that is the approach to read, or he will explain you the concepts, right? So this is the comprehensive method which you have to follow for your first phase in order to maximize the impact of your reading, right? This is what we call the micromanagement with active learning. And there is only one thing that you need to keep in mind, that it has to be applied at the level of topic, that is at micro level. Okay, if you do, कि चलो यार, I will read 4 chapters, and after reading 4 chapters, I will solve the PYQs and the practice MCQs of all the 4 chapters at once. That is the mistake that you do. Okay, this is where your consistency aspect is tested, right? Because see, this is a repetitive process that for every chapter you have to follow this process. So covering of the chapter may get lengthy. Okay, rather than 2 hours, it may take 3 hours. But if you want to have the maximum output from your readings, this is the process that you have to follow. Because the self-analysis and fault finding of your inputs, right, is the most important aspects for the comprehensive coverage. Right after the process, the next aspect is the input-output balance. Right, input-output balance is basically essential in order to check your retention level. Right, retention level as in, see, in the first process, what we are doing after reading each chapter, we are solving the MCQ. So the probability of having 90% plus accuracy rate is more, right? So this is the level 1 of self-analysis. And this is the level 2 of self-analysis. Right? Here, what you do, once you finish any particular part or your weekly target, right? Once that weekly target is complete, you go for the weekly prelims test, right? Of, let's say, your target for the week first of polity is to cover from historical background to the this directive fundamental duties. Okay. So once you finish those chapters, let's say from Monday to Saturday, on Sunday, you have to give your prelims test for that 7 to 8 chapters, right? And that will, the score in that will test your retention. After the tests, whatever facts you are not able to recall or whatever concepts you are getting wrong, you can revise it on the Sunday itself. And from Monday onwards, you can start with your next target, right? And second is the Samachar Manthan tests, which are your current affairs test and which will be related to the mains. So simultaneously, your prelims as well as mains answer writing has to go hand in hand, right? And for every test, if you get yourself a mentor where on your weekly call, he is discussing your prelims test as well as the SM tests, right? He is finding your faults and providing you the course correction. That is the best way or the most effective way by which you can reach from the level of the beginner to the topper within 1 year. Why I am so confident about this is, see, take the example of Animesh only, right? So this is Animesh, where he started at the beginner level, right? So when he enrolled in the February 2022, okay, this was the first Samachar Manthan answer that he wrote. If you see, there is no proper structure into his answer. There is no segregation of the the headings in the main body, no segregation of the introduction and conclusion, right? There are no boxes or the presentation, right? But see, he maintained the consistency. So these are the list of his Samachar Manthans. So throughout his week, okay, or throughout his preparation from February 2022 to January 2023, he wrote all the 38 Samachar Manthans. Okay, this is the compilation of each Samachar Manthan written by Animesh Pradhan. It is also available on our website. Okay, you can just go through it. You can simply read the first Samachar Manthan that he has written and the last Samachar Manthan that he has written, right? So after the first phase, when he started the first phase, this was the level of answer writing that he wrote. Okay. Then within a year, that is on 17th January 2023, right? So in the span of 11 months itself, right, the level of answer writing improved from this to this. Now you can see, at least with respect to the structure, there is a proper structuring in his answer. There is a proper segregation of the dimensions in the main body. There is the proper weightage given to the introduction and conclusion. There is proper coverage of the dimension and improved presentation by boxing the keywords. Right. So within 1 year, by consistently writing Samachar Manthan every week and getting it reviewed by his mentor, right, and finding the faults and making the course correction, he reached to the level of rank holder. Right. After this, he stopped writing Samachar Manthan because he shifted to the prelims. Right. Then, after the prelims, this was the last answers that he wrote with before his means. That is 27th of August. So from month of May to month of September, he reached from the level of rank holder to the topper. Again, there is a difference between rank holder and topper. Because writing these kind of answers without diagrams, without data and examples will take you to the level of the rank holder. That is where your rank will be in the range of 200, 300. But to get into the top 100 or to get into the top 10, right, you need this level of the sophisticated answer writing. right? Where there is a proper diagram, where there is improved presentation, and where there is improved dimension coverage. So it is a just a 10 marker question, but in the 10 marker questions itself, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So in 10 marker questions itself, he has covered 14 dimensions. Right. This is the depth that you need to bring. Again, the use of the keywords like the triple bottom line, maximum of reciprocity, right? Then this the reports, right? Again, the keywords like inclusive growth, minimize inequality, relevance of justice, prevalence of justice, right? So this level of the sophistication. But again, this is not going to come at one go. There is a proper process. And if you are honest with that process, trust me, within a year, you can reach from this level, that is the beginner level, to the upper level. And for that, what is required is your honesty with the process, right? How honest you are with this process. Okay, if you get complacent with the process, ki yaar nahi, I will first read 5 chapters, then I will solve the PYQs and MCQs of all chapters together. Okay, that is not going to work. Okay, third, the structured mentorship plus the periodic testing of prelims as well as the mains. Let's talk about the third aspect, which is the exam orientation, right? Or what we call as the exam oriented approach. Now, exam oriented approach is essential because if you see any of the standard book, for example, let's take Lakshmikant. Okay, so in Lakshmikant itself, only 70 to 80% of the chapters are relevant for your exam preparation. There are few chapters from which you have never got questions and there is no possibility of you getting the questions from those chapters. Okay, be it prelims or be it mains. Okay, same thing with let's say the parts from the spectrum of modern history. Okay, the entire part after post-independence is completely irrelevant. If you buy the new spectrum, there are more than 400 pages where they have given post-independence history, which is absolutely not essential for your prelims as well as mains, right? See, anyway, you are going to get just one question from the post-independence. And for that, rather than going through the 400 pages, you go through the 60 pages notes, that is the expected notes that you will be getting. Right. So exam-oriented approach is first to understand the important aspects from your standard book. Second, the PYQ-driven strategy. Right. Anyway, in our process, we have established the importance of the PYQs. Right. But here also, if you see through this micro theme distribution, okay, you should be able to get the important areas from every subject. So, for example, this is the micro theme distribution of polity from the perspective of the prelims. So majority of the questions in last 20 years have come from judiciary and political theory. Political theory content you will get from the basic NCRTs, the 2 NCRTs that I have talked about. Right. So whenever you will be revising your Lakshmikant second or third time, you will be starting with these micro themes. So you will be first revising judiciary, then you will be revising political theory, and then you will be doing the fundamental rights. This is how the PYQ orientation helps you with respect to the exam oriented approach, and it can also streamline your revisions in the sense that whenever you are revising Lakshmikant, rather than starting from the first chapter, you start based upon the weightage in the micro themes. Similar is with respect to the mains. Right, majority of your questions are on fundamental rights and local self-government. Next is the resource minimalism with maximum depth. Right. So again, you must have heard this mantra that keep your resources minimum and revisions maximum. Right. What does that mean? That means that for every subject, your resources should be limited to the one standard book and just one value addition notes. ठीक है? One value addition notes can be your X factor notes or any other subject specific compilation that you get from the market. Because this is the only one value addition notes that you should follow as far as your mains is concerned. Right? In that notes itself, once you prepare the short notes on these, okay, the one standard value addition notes that you are following, you can do the value addition into that from the current affairs magazine and the test model also. Because see, if you follow the consistency, you will also end up writing more than 40 samachar mantans or more than 40 weekly tests of the means. So with each weekly test, you will also get the model answers. Then when you will enter into the advanced phase where you will be doing your this subject specific, and from December and January where you will be revising and giving the FLTs, right? So on an average, you will be giving around 40 weekly tests of 5 questions. That is 200 questions. Then around 10 advanced tests or the advanced sectional test during the phase 3 of your preparation, which so 10, that is again 200 questions, and 4 FLTs, right? That is again 80 questions. So around 480 questions you will be writing in 1 year, and for every question you will be having the model answer, right? So that is the sufficient resource to do the value addition into your notes, right? You pick one current affairs, you do the value addition from the current affairs and from the model answers of your tests. That is more than sufficient content for any topper. Okay. Again, rather than having more content, it is important to have the consolidation of your content. How? I will show you. Again, let's say this is the notes of Animesh on corruption. Okay, this is just 2.5 pager notes. If you see, he has given the definition. Okay, again, the types and the reasons. Again, reasons he has classified into the administrative, political, social, economic, and then impact. And at the end, he has given ways to tackle. That is the way forward. Now, if you compare this, okay, this is his short notes on the corruption. Okay, if you compare this with his answer, so this is the answer which he wrote just before his mains. Now compare, there is the exact reflection of his notes. So World Bank definition, which he had into his notes, has become his standard introduction. Right. Then the cartelization or the concentration of power, the economic implications, collusive corruption. Again, the collusive corruption aspect he has from this. Okay, with respect to the reasons, the economic reasons. Right. This. And then with respect to the way forward, e-governance, ethical training, all are from his notes. ठीक है, e-governance, ठीक है, strict adherence to the code of conduct and code of ethics, that is ethical training, ठीक है, that. And at the end, again with the Kaushik Basu, Sanskritization of the corruption, which is also in his notes. Sanskritization of the corruption, Kaushik Basu. Right. This is what is needed. Rather than preparing 10-pager notes on the corruption itself, rather than compiling multiple data, Okay, it is absolutely essential that whatever notes you have prepared, those are properly consolidated, right? Consolidation happens only with two aspects. One, when there is the proper classification of your dimensions, and second, when there is sufficient amount of revisions, right? In his entire notes, there are only two names of the scholars, and in his answer, again, the World Bank and the scholar name is properly reflected. Okay. So your notes has to be reflected into your answers. Then only your answer becomes very dense or content heavy, right? Otherwise, you end up writing the generic content because there is a time limit. Okay. That is why it is absolutely essential, okay, to have the short notes and to follow just one resource. We'll explain the process for second phase. Your third phase, you can see, which is GS paper-wise preparation, right? Here, what you have to do simply is first, again, here also we'll go for the micromanagement. Again, we won't simply follow won't simply pick the Lakshmikant, revise Lakshmikant, and then go to the X factor at once. No, here you have to align your preparation with micro themes. Right, micro theme as in these are the list of the micro theme from which you get questions into your mains. Right, for example, the first micro theme is the local self-government from which you have got the maximum of the questions. So first you revise your standard book, that is you revise the Lakshmikant, the local self-government topics from the Lakshmikant. From there, you will get the idea with respect to the static aspect of it, that is the constitutional provisions and all. Then you read the X factor notes. Right? From where you will get the value addition material and current affairs. Then you go through the PYQs. Okay, from PYQ, just see if any of the aspect is missing in X factor notes. If any of the aspect is missing in the X factor notes, you have to do the value addition from that PYQ. Right. And at the end, try to attempt at least two PYQs or try to write at least two PYQs. A simple way of doing it is you pick two PYQs, one which you feel is the hardest one and one which you feel is the easiest one. Right. Suppose even if you cover around 5 micro themes in a week, you will end up writing 10 answers. You get it evaluated by your mentor, you get it feedback from your mentor. Right. And for each one, you prepare 1 or 2 pager short notes. Okay. And to further streamline this process, what we have done is we have integrated the Smash PYQ sessions. Yeah. So in this session, simply what we do is we do the live answer writing. If you want to go how those lectures are conducted, you can ask for one demo lecture where I myself write each and every PYQ from 2018 onwards for that micro theme. And in the X factor notes, what we have given is the two aspects which are missing. One, the answer writing framework for that particular chapter. And the second is the topper's answers. Okay, so it is what we have done is we have moved one step up where we have not just classified the PYQs based upon the micro themes. We have also segregated the toppers answers based upon the micro theme. So suppose you are doing the local self-government. So you will be having the answer writing framework for local self-government ready, and you will be having the toppers answers written on local self-government. And toppers are only rank 1 to 5 from last 5 years. Right. So once you read, once you go through the sessions where you go do the live answer writing, once you read the expected notes, that will build your content. Right. Answer writing framework will give you the frame of mind to think whenever you get the question on the that particular micro theme, and toppers answers will also give you some innovative ideas that you can bring into your answers. Right. Then is it clear? Yeah, how you have to approach your third phase, that is the mains phase. Yes. Then with respect to the notes, right? One pager notes for each micro theme. And then again, the framework for the notes. Simply you have to focus upon these aspects. One is the history. Okay, suppose you are preparing the notes on the Naxalism. You can simply add the history of it. It originated in 1960s from Naxalbari village, through the Charu Muzumdar. That is the history, or you can have a flowchart on the historical evolution of it. Then the definition of the concepts, right? And then will come your factual part, which will involve the facts, data, examples, case studies, right? This will be your substantiation part in the answer. Right. Next, the analytical part. That is the positives and negatives of that particular thing. Next, the steps taken by the government and way forward. If you see the notes of Animesh, they are also covered in the similar aspect. Right. First, the definition of the World Bank, the classification of its types. Right. Analysis में there can't be any positives of the corruption. Right. So there has to be the negatives. So this is the analytical part. Right. The causes and the impact. And then at the end, the way forward. Right. Thus, in this framework, you have to prepare your brief notes. Right. Then next aspect is, okay, now we have got the clarity with respect to the process. We have got the clarity with respect to the your overall phase-wise approach building or overall phase-wise schedule, right? And we have got the clarity with respect to the resources. Okay. Now let's get the clarity with respect to the role of the mentor. Okay. I'm not saying that you join the any course for the mentorship. Okay. Each and every one must have at least one senior aspirant who is preparing for last 2 to 3 years, or you must have access to any of the topper. Okay. From there also you can get the mentorship. Okay. But it's absolutely essential to have at least one senior who is there to find your faults and who is there to provide you with the guidelines for the course correction. Okay. And from the mentorship, again, you will be focusing upon, or you will be getting the three major aspects for your preparation. One is the approach building. Second, help with respect to the resources. And third, fault finding and course correction. Right now, with respect to the approach building. Okay, so approach building is simple, where again we have explained the process. Before reading any particular chapter, you need to know the basics or the nuances of that chapter and the important areas to focus from that chapter, right? So before knowing the important areas, when you read, that becomes your active learning, right? When you don't know anything about that particular chapter or the overall exam relevance of that particular chapter, okay, then whatever reading you will be doing, that will be the passive reading, because you won't be knowing the areas to focus. You won't be knowing the exam relevance of whatever you are reading, right? So that is why having a proper approach is essential. Yes, secondly, apart from the phase-wise or the broad schedule that you will be having, there has to be a personalized strategy design. It's very simple. Whoever senior you have, you just sit with him once. You just give him the idea with respect to your present standing in the preparation. Yeah, I have covered these subjects. I have covered it from these resources, and I am confident in these subjects. I am not confident in these subjects. Or if you have given any tests, you provide him with the data on the tests. Based upon that, he will provide you with the proper strategy design, right? Tailored to your strength, weaknesses, right? Second, again, you will be having a greater clarity with respect to the phase-wise priorities, right? Third, the PYQ alignment, and fourth, with respect to the answer writing and mock test scheduling. When to give which test, when to cover which subject, right? And your fault finding in answer writing, right? Without having a mentor who is reviewing your answers, right? It's very difficult to reach from the level of the beginner to this level within 1 year. Right? I'm not saying ki you go to him every week and evaluate, right? If he is already a rank holder, you first do the self-evaluation based upon the topper's answers, and periodically once in a month, you get the review of that particular mentor. Right? If you have the dedicated mentor who will calling you weekly, then each and every test will get reviewed. Right? But the next is, so let's take the example of how the approach is built. Right? So I told at the beginning that before starting your weekly targets, you will be having one 30-minute session on important aspects from every topic, right? So let's take the example. So this is the preamble topic from Lakshmikant. So here the proper focus areas are given, right? So comparison of Indian US federalism, comparison of objective resolution and preamble, and significance of the preamble, right? Then for every keyword given in the preamble, we the people of India solemnly resolve to give ourselves the sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. So all these five are the keyword. Then liberty, equality, and justice, and fraternity. These keywords. Okay, so for every keyword, you need to know the proper definition. Then, if there is any classification, that is with respect to equality, you have classification or you have types in the form of equality of status and equality of opportunity, right? Then constitutional provision for each principle. That is which of the constitutional provisions provide for the equality of status. That is Article 14, 15, 16, which provide for equality of opportunity. That is the reservation under Article 16. Right, and then comparison with the Western model. For example, the secularism model of India and the US, or India and the UK. Similarly, the socialism model of India and the USSR. Right, and last thing is whether preamble is the part of the constitution. This evolution of the SC judgment and the present status. Last, the amendability of the preamble. Right. Why this is important? Because you already have the PYQ in 2016, where they have said, discuss each objective attached to the word preamble. Are they defendable in present circumstances? So objective attached are sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, or republic. Right? Republic is already given. So only if you have this for every keyword, only if you know the definition, the classification and constitutional provision, then only you will be able to address this particular question. Right. Similarly, if you see the mains, so preamble to the constitution, part of the constitution, whether it is part or not. Right. These are the previous year prelims questions that you have got. Right. So before starting your preparation, if you get this level of the analysis, right, that is going to make your job a lot easier, because after this, you will be able to identify the important focus areas from the topic. Right. And again, you will get the conceptual clarity as well. Right. Yes. Right. Last is the second last is the resource consolidation. Right. Resource consolidation means integration of the static with your current affairs that we have already discussed. Then elimination of non-essential material. That is, like I said, from Lakshmikant also, only 70% of the content is relevant. From Spectrum also, around 400 pages are completely irrelevant. Right. And then one pager notes. Right. So every week, or the whenever you are talking to the mentor, always take two things with you. One is your notes for review, and second, your tests for review. Right. So the process is, first, get the proper approach for covering particular aspect. Second, follow the process where solving the PYQs and tests. And third, fault finding and course correction. Right. This is the method that you need to adopt to clear the UPSC. Right. Without having an approach when you will read any particular subject, that becomes passive learning. Without, right, following the process-centric coverage, when you simply read the topics and then attempt the test, that impacts your retention. That is only 30 to 40% of the content you will be able to retain. Right. And without fault finding, there is no course correction. Until and unless you know your mistakes, you can't work upon them and you can't improve them. Right. For like this, the fault finding and course correction. Right. Identification of the blind spots, performance analysis by test, right? And collective strategy interventions to realign goals and habits consistently. That is to ensure the consistency in your preparation. Right? This is the level where you can get the, or where you need the help of the mentor. Okay? Overall, this is how you have to follow the proper MAC. Can these all you should properly consolidate before beginning your preparation. Right. First, let's just sit down, do the see. If you are a beginner, the first thing that you should do is just sit down, get the syllabus copy and do the syllabus mapping. Okay, simple. Second, get yourself 2 books first, okay, of PYQs, of prelims as well as mains. They should be topic wise. Okay. We have the micro theme wise, the next level platform where we have classified the PIQ based upon the topics. Okay, that also you can utilize. The third, make a list of resources. Okay, this is the bare minimum which you should have before starting actual reading. Do these first things, do these 3 things first. Then you go to your foundation phase of NCERT and all.